Eight duelists remain in the 150th Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series tournament. 6 of them are playing Necros. The other 2 are sitting right here at our feature match table. Benedikt Junk running Clifforts, as you may recall, and running Irvin Tostado running Ritual Beasts.
We have covered each of these decks at one point in the tournament, but never when the stakes were this high in an elimination round. Benedikt Junk, we actually featured yesterday, and when we saw his Cliffort deck in action, now we're going to watch Breton with his Spiritual Beast deck. As we mentioned yesterday when we covered the deck, Ritual Beast received a lot of new support in the new Cross Souls set. The new Ritual Beast fusion monster, Ritual Beast Ulti-Gaia Pelio, is not only useful as a powerful monster that can end duels with its effect, with its high attack points, over 3,000 attack points, and its effect that lets you negate spells, traps, and monster effects, but also because it's a psychic monster, so you can use it in conjunction with your
Spiritual Beast Rempengu.
Spiritual Beast Rempengu to banish it from your extra deck along with a psychic monster, to send a psychic monster to your graveyard from your deck.
Speaking of Rempengu.
Yes, speaking of Rempengu, there he is. He started off by summoning it, activates effect, chose to banish the Ulti Cannahawk from his extra deck, and then send Spiritual Beast Cannahawk from his deck to his graveyard.
Cannahawk acts something like a gold sarcophagus for the Ritual Beast theme, banishing a card and then retrieving it to your hand 2 turns later, or, as is usually the case, very shortly after you banish it.
Yes. Ritual Beast decks are constantly moving cards around between the banish zone, the field, the graveyard, and the hand.
Emergency Teleport is up next. Special summon a level 3 or lower Psychic from the deck. It's banished at the end of the turn. All of the Ritual Beast Tamer monsters are level 3 or lower Psychics. In this case, he's gotten the Elder. Elder, after its normal summon, gives you an extra normal summon of a Ritual Beast monster. But in this case, it's mainly going to be used because it is a Ritual Beast Tamer, and you need a Tamer and a Spiritual Beast to summon a Ritual Beast fusion monster from your extra deck.
This is a great start for Breton.
Everything's on the field, no response. Both monsters are banished to summon. Generally, it would be another Ulti Cannahawk here.
And that is exactly what it is. He has chosen to summon Ulti Cannahawk from his extra deck. I suspect it won't be sitting around for long, though.
No, it has an ability to send 2 of your banished cards to the graveyard to search for another Ritual Beast card from your deck, but it also has the ability as a quick effect to send itself back to the extra deck and summon 2 banished Ritual Beast monsters.
Right, those 2 monsters do not have to both make it to the graveyard in order to use its other effect and search your deck for Ritual Beast card and add it to your hand. And that is typically what happens. You would activate its effect to choose 2 cards to return to your graveyard, and then chain its quick effect to split it apart, turn it back into a Spiritual Beast and a Ritual Beast Tamer, possibly one of the ones you targeted, and then bring that back to your hand. So it looks like he's using Effect Veiler to negate its effect.
Yeah, so the trick with this is that when you do that trick, your opponent knows it's coming, so you activate the first effect, and when you go to chain the second effect, that's when they get you with Effect Veiler.
So I take it that Ulti Cannahawk does not return to the extra deck as part of the cost?
It should return to the deck as part of a cost, so we can assume that that is not what happened. So it looks like Ulti Cannahawk was summoned, and Effect Veiler was just used immediately, so that if he banished it, he would not get the extra search. He'd just get the monsters
That
back.
must be what happened here. That's pretty much the only way to explain that game state. Okay.
Upstart Goblin and 2 face-down cards, end the turn. And now we're over to the Clifford player.
Yes. started off with Positive Duality, add Summoner's Art to his hand, use Summoner's Art to add Clipboard Scout to his hand.
Mystical Space Typhoon is activated, destroying face down Vanity's Emptiness. Good hit on that one.
That is definitely a good hit. And there comes the Scout. So now that Scout is in the Pendulum Zone, Benedikt Junk can pay 800 life points to add one Clipboard card from his deck to his hand once per turn. And that is exactly what he's doing right now.
Recreate is the card he's chosen. Negates the effect of a normal summoned level 4 or lower monster for the turn, or the effects of a special summon level 5 or higher monster for the turn. In the case of level 5 or higher monsters, the monster is banished when it leaves the field. Pretty useful against this particular deck since they have to normal summon things like Rampengu, and then special summon bigger monsters.
Yes, that's not commonly the first card people go for when they use the Scout's effect, but Junk apparently recognizes that it is a strong card in this matchup, and that's why I assume he took it.
Reclate added to the hand. We also see that he has Raigeki, his own Vanity's Emptiness, and a Cliffort Stealth.
And the Stealth strikes the field. He normal summons it.
Attacks into Kanahawk. And he checks his graveyard to see if he wants to activate an effect, but does not. Kanahawk is defeated. 2 cards face down. And at the end of the turn, Ritual Beast Ambush is activated to special summon 2 monsters, a Spiritual Beast and a Ritual Beast Tamer, that are either banished or in the graveyard. Extremely powerful card, reminiscent of Gotham's Emergency Call.
It is very reminiscent of Gotham's Emergency Call. I actually never made that comparison.
Rampengu's back, and so is the Elder.
Is there any reason he would allow his Kanahawk to be destroyed and not disband into 2 more monsters when it was attacked?
I can't think of one offhand, but it could just be that he needs to have a Ritual Beast card somewhere to banish for a different effect. For example, Apelio could banish that monster from the graveyard to gain 500 attack points later on. Rampengu activates. This time, he searches through his extra deck and decides to send Apelio, standard Apelio.
Ulti Apelio.
So that stands a Pyro monster to the graveyard, which is Spiritual Beast Apelio. So the thing to note with the fusion monsters, they cannot be special summoned by any other way than their own effect. So that Kanahawk's staying there unless something else moves it. But it's not coming back to the field.
Right. They're gone.
That's why it puzzles me a bit. Vanity's Emptiness is flipped.
Just in time to stop him from combining his monsters. Yeah, so Junk had to activate it there. He couldn't wait for his opponent to declare that he wanted to fuse his monsters together. At that point, it's too late.
Correct. Actions that don't start a chain, you don't get to go back and say, oh, well, I want to do this.
Right.
Third monster joins them, which is another Apelio. Right now, Cliffort Stealth's attack points are 1,800, whereas Spiritual Beast Apelio starts out at 1,800 of its own, but can then banish a Ritual Beast card from the field or graveyard to give all of his monsters plus 500 attack for the turn.
Yes. Apelio has a cool effect because it's not like a lot of other cards It doesn't only give your monsters on the field 500 attack points per turn. It actually gives all of your ritual beasts 500 attack points, including the ones that you summon after using Apelio's effect.
It's also a quick effect. You can use it on either player's turn and in a chain to something else. So the Recreate, in this case, can be flipped face up, but as you can see here, Apelio is being chained to it. And he goes ahead. Well, he thought about banishing the Canhawk there for a second.
Yeah, so the Recreate is essentially useless against the Apelio, right? Is it
Correct.
doing? Yeah. So because it's spell speed 2, it's actually not doing anything.
So he winds up banishing regular Canhawk instead of Ulti Canhawk. Apelio goes up to 2,300. And Rampengu, which I believe starts at 16, will go up to 21. Okay. Both of them are big enough to take down the Stealth, and they do. Vanity's Emptiness stays because, of course, Pendulum monsters go to the extra deck instead of the graveyard.
Yes. That's very important to note.
Of course, Benedikt Junk has Regeki in his hand.
Yes, he also has Summoner's Art.
Now, the problem with Regeki is that if he plays it, he will turn off his own Vanity's Emptiness.
Yes, I don't know if that's so much of a problem here, though, because it looks like he wouldn't mind that too much. With the Vanity's Emptiness face up, he can't Pendulum Summon. Eventually, he's going to have to.
Quite true. Scout's effect activates.
All right. No Ghost Ogre. And Snow Rabbit.
Nope. Nowhere to be seen, not even in the side deck.
Yeah, it doesn't look like either duelist is using that card. That card did get a lot of talk, though, specifically for stopping Clipboard Scout.
We saw a lot of them in side decks as well, but we haven't actually seen one hit play this weekend. Not on stream, anyway.
Yes.
Summoner's Art goes ahead and grabs Cliffort Monolith.
And there goes the Vanity's Emptiness.
Monolith is activated. That is in the opposite pendulum zone. I've seen a lot of it. The actual placement of the pendulum zones is between your deck and graveyard, and also between your extra deck and the field zone.
And there comes the Raigeki.
Stealth is pendulum summoned, and Raigeki is activated.
So he's using his Apelio's effect to banish one of his ritual beasts from his graveyard, but that's not going to protect his 3 monsters.
Yeah, it's largely just a setup for future plays, if possible.
Yes. And now he is able to tribute his stealth.
For, looks like a Helix.
Yes, Clipboard Helix. Which, of course, will allow him to use his Monolith effect in the end phase to draw 1 card for each of those Clipboards he tributed, drawing 1 card in his end phase.
And the monster that he summoned comes in at level 6 as a normal summon, so Recreate doesn't do anything to it.
Yeah.
And that's Ritual Beast Tamer Lara. She summons back a Ritual Beast from your graveyard, a normal summon. Also has 2,000 defense, so she's not a bad defender. Activates her ability. And then Recreate. Actually, Recreate is activated first because it is mandatory. Ritual Beast Tamer Lair, we just checked, is an optional effect. So it will chain to the Recreate and be able to resolve successfully.
That's because they're both effects that happen when the monster is summoned?
Yes. They both have the same trigger, but one is mandatory and one is optional. So the rules of simultaneous effects say that the mandatory one has to be first on the chain, even if it would otherwise break the spell speed rule. And that is why Apelio is back.
Yes. That's very good to know. That can often make or break you in a duel. And a lot of duelists don't know that. So that's definitely something you want to know on the competitive scene. And it appears that Breton does know that because here he is with his 2 monsters.
Everything's going to get a buff for the rest of this turn. Apelio to 2,300. Lara to still not very much. And that is why he's taking a look in his extra deck. It's only got 1 Ulti Canahawk left. So he may just go for pure power in the form of Ulti Apelio. Even though it won't be affected by regular Apelio. While attacking, anyway. Actually, its effect will be negated anyways, because of the Recreate.
Yeah. Oh, he banishes them both and goes for Ulti Apelio in any case.
Ulti Apelio. Benedikt is going ahead and reading it, so we will also read it. Ulti Apelio, level 6, 2600 attack. If it attacks, it's unaffected by other cards' effects until the end of the damage step, and it has the contact out ability that the rest of them have. Of course, we actually had a similar situation come up with Skill Drain yesterday, because the negation was on the field first. Before this other effect applied, the negation will take precedence.
Yes.
And Ulti Apelio goes ahead and attacks. That does mean, though, that it gets the 500.
Right.
Since it's not affected by its own ability in that case.
Right. That's interesting. So you get the good and the bad with it.
Play is back to Benedikt Junk. First, activating Cliffort Scout.
This is a tough duel for Breton because he hasn't been able to destroy that Scout. So I believe, if my count is correct, this is the third time Benedikt Junk has used its effect to search his deck for any Cliffort card in his deck.
It's been there from the beginning.
Yeah, and he has a lot of Cliffort cards in his deck, so that's basically choosing, one of several cards to just add to his hand every turn for 800 life points.
He just needs to be careful with his life points. Otherwise, a game that he seems to be pretty well ahead in could turn to disaster.
It's true. Now he has 4 monsters protecting him, so he's in a lot better shape. Thanks to that Pendulum summon, but that doesn't mean that his opponent won't be able to just use Raigeki to destroy them all, and then summon a couple big monsters to just wipe out all of his life points. 2
carriers tributed for stealth, and that is going to be a big thorn into Breton's side. He can order the chain so that his first 2 monsters, or the monsters he tributed, are Chainlink 1 and 2. Stealth will be Chainlink 3, kicking the Apelio back to the extra deck, and as a result, he can't contact out to at least put defenders in the way. And he knows it, and he scoops it up for the first game.
Yep, that's the end of Duel 1. So Benedikt Junk is up 1-0 with his Cliffort deck. Do you think we're going to see Breton go first or second in Duel 2?
That's a good question. I believe that he will probably go first. What he wants to do is, his trap cards are actually very important to his strategy between Ritual Beast Steeds, Mind Crush, and Ritual Beast Ambush. Especially now that he knows that he's playing against Clifforts, he wants to be able to respond to, say, Scout, etc. straight away. He already has 2 Mystical Space Typhoons in his main deck. He's probably going to put in the 3rd one. And if he wants to draw into other side deck cards like Twister, of which he has a couple, he wants to get those down right away before Benedikt Junk can start rolling in all the free cards off of Cliffort Scout.
Yeah. Breton does have 3 copies of Artifact Lancia, 2 copies of Max C, 1 Mystical Space Typhoon, 2 Twisters, as you just mentioned, 1 Dimensional Fissure, 1 Macrocosmos, 1 Chaos Crap Hole, 2 Defusion, and 2 Crapstun in his side deck.
We've seen a lot of Dimensional Fissure this weekend in Ritual Beast decks, and
yes.
I think it can help out here as well, along with Macrocosmos. If you can replace the basic game rule of how Pendulum monsters work with an effect like Macrocosmos that tells you to do something else with the cards, the card effect will override. So they can banish the Pendulum monsters instead of sending them to the extra deck, and that'll cut off the source of infinite monsters for Benedikt Junk.
Yeah, so that might be the approach he takes here. I expect we'll definitely see those 2 Twisters sided in.
Absolutely.
He's not using one of the more common side deck strategies we've seen that involved either Fairy Wind or Spell Shattering Arrow to destroy all pendulum cards in the Pendulum Zone at once. And it appears he's just opting for the simple removal of Mystical Space Typhoon and Twister to destroy them one at a time, ideally in response to a Scout's effect, so your opponent can lose 800 life points and not be able to search for a card with its effect. As the rules of the game go, if your face-up spell card is not on the field, when it would otherwise resolve, you don't get to use the effect.
That's for continuous, field, pendulum, anything that stays up on the field permanently if it's not there.
Do not try to use Mystical Space Typhoon on a normal spell card after they activate it.
Yeah,
you cannot stop Raigeki in that way.
Does not negate Raigeki.
Yes, but for Clipboard Scout, if you chain Mystical Space Typhoon to its effect, your opponent will not be able to search his deck for a Clipboard card if you're successful at destroying it. Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit relies on that exact ruling, which is why it's a good card. You can discard it from your hand to destroy that scout when they pay the end of your life points, and then they also won't get the effect.
You know, that's one of the most common basic questions that beginners have when they start the game is, if I destroy your Raigeki as you play it with Mystical Space Typhoon, or if I play Mystical Space Typhoon to destroy Mirror Force after you've activated, does it stop it? If not, why?
Yeah, it's a difference between negate and destroy, or negate the activation. It's subtle, but it is significant. There is a difference. And I guess the confusion is also complicated by the fact that it works a little bit differently for continuous spell cards, like Clipboard Scout and the Pendulum Zone, than it does for a normal spell card. In Benedikt Junk's side deck, we have 2 Majesty's Fiend, 2 Spell Canceller, Mystical Space Typhoon, the Monarch Storm 4th, 1 Typhoon, 1 Climate Change, 2 Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, 2 Mistake, and 2 Imperial Iron Wall.
As expected, Breton has chosen to go first, and he starts with an Upstart Goblin. But it looks like he's got a handful of monsters, not so much the traps he was hoping to see. Starts off with the normal summon of Spiritual Beast Canahawk.
As we know from before, Canahawk's effect works a lot like Gold Sarcophagus. You can banish a Ritual Beast from his deck, and then reclaim that card in 2 turns, if he does not get it sooner. So he's sending his Apelio to the banish zone so that he can try to pick it up a little later. I guess the Canahawk kind of lifts it away into his hand.
Something like that. More like, you have your monster sleeping, and the Canahawk just shocks it with a lightning bolt. And it gets up, but it takes a couple turns to get there. 2 face-down cards join the Canahawk.
And here comes the Monarch. Here comes the Monarch Storm 4th. So it looks like he sided in at least 1 copy of the Monarch Storm 4th, probably both.
Storm 4th, if you didn't see it before, it's a spell that affects every monster your opponent plays for the turn and makes them eligible for tribute for your tribute summons. Only 1, though. Carrier is tribute summoned using the Canahawk. And a direct attack knocks Breton down to 5,600. 3 face-down cards, Adorn, Junk, Spell, and Trap Zones, and plays back to Breton. 1 turn left to wait for Apelio. Looks like he's got Ritual Beast Tamer Zephyr Pilica. He summons Lara, although the 2 are practically interchangeable other than attack and defense points and pendulum status.
Yes, since each Ritual Beast can only be special summoned once per turn, other than the ulti Ritual Beast fusion monsters, it's nice to have both.
It's a different name, gets you 1 more summon out. Vanity's Emptiness is activated, though.
So, no special summons here.
Checks his face-down cards. Looks like nothing's there. And he passes his turn, forced to leave Lara in attack position.
It looks like he has a lose 1 turn in his hand.
Lara is under attack by the carrier, and Book of Moon flips it face down. In this case, it looks like he's just trying to keep a monster on the field so that if the emptiness does go, he can start a strategy back up.
So now that that monster was set face down, does it regain its attack points?
It already had them. That was the tribute summoned one off
You're right,
of
the Monarch Storm 4th.
Interestingly enough, Junk's deck isn't really doing a whole lot. There's no Clifford Scout, there's no searching,
Yes.
it's just traps.
Yeah. Yeah, not starting off with Scout can be a little tough sometimes. He's certainly holding his own here, though.
It looks like he's caught his opponent with a fairly weak hand as well.
That is true. He is definitely has an advantage because of that.
Apilio is back, and he goes ahead and normal summons that. And the confusion is over, hey, did the card switch around? Junk says, I hope not. One of them's a monster. It can't go in that other zone.
Well, if Apilio attacks a trap card, we'll know.
Yep, we'll know for sure.
Should be easy to fix if that happens.
Bottomless trap hole is activated to take out Apilio.
So that trap card is where it is supposed to be, in his spell and trap card zone.
I would much rather attack into a bottomless trap hole than get hit by it.
Yeah.
Can't do anything then.
All right, so now that bottomless trap hole is sent to the graveyard, Vanity's Emptiness goes with it. And now the duel should be more exciting as both of them are able to special summon monsters.
Considers switching Lara to defense position. It does so. It has a much higher 2,000 defense. Still not enough to best the carrier, but in defense position, your life points are safe. One more face-down card is added and plays back to Benedikt, who's just picked up the Regeki again. No need to use it here, though. You have the commanding monster on the board. Nothing your opponent can normal summon can really deal with that, even Apilio, since it can only get up to 2,300 on its own. And Lara is defeated. See Zephyr Pilica. Ah, no, that's good. He's picked up Ritual Beast Steeds, it looks like. Zephyr Pilica has essentially the same effect as Lara. Normal summon it to special summon a Ritual Beast from the graveyard, except the monster will be destroyed during the end phase.
Fiendish Chain is activated to negate the new Ritual Beast's effect. Although, since that doesn't get rid of the Zephyr Pilica, Breton can still use the Ritual Beast Steeds he picked up to destroy Junk's Clipfort. The Steeds destroys a number of cards, number of monsters in your opponent's field equal to the number of Ritual Beasts that you have on your field. Mm-hmm. So,
and Junk continues to not draw any of his other Clifforts.
And there come the Steeds. You know, normally sending an opponent's Pendulum monster to their extra deck isn't the biggest of deals, but when you're playing against a Clipfort player who has nothing in his Pendulum zones, it's actually a pretty powerful play.
Carrier's gone off to the extra deck, and Junk is basically stuck with a bunch of cards to counter his opponent's strategy and none to further his own.
Yes.
That is the challenge that you face with these high negation decks. Like the versions of Teller Knights that we saw a lot of this weekend with 20 traps, that's all defense, barely any action.
It's true.
Petalfin is summoned, and with the pair of both a Tamer and a Ritual Beast, Breton can get into his extra deck. Fiendish Chain stays where it is because the monster wasn't destroyed.
So now his Ritual Beast deck is finally moving.
And they've gone ahead and flipped it backwards, so everybody knows it's not doing anything, it's just hanging out. Ritual Beast Ulti Apilio is sent out. Junk has 9,000 life points.
Ulti Apilio, I expected him to go for Counterhawk there.
And that sound means that somebody has moved on to the top 4.
Yes.
But it's not our match. In our match, lose 1 turn has been flipped.
It has.
Presumably in response to the summon, which would activate its effect to switch Apilio to defense position, but Mystical Space Typhoon makes short work of it, and Apilio takes off 2,600 life points.
Yes. Why do you think he went for the Apilio instead of the Counterhawk?
I think he's just damage racing at this point. And it's not like he can't go into the Counterhawk in main phase 2. So you got to get that damage in, and then further your own strategy.
I see. So he went the other way around. He went for the Canahawk in the second main phase. Well, he hasn't done it yet, so we'll see.
All right, so what he can do here, assuming he has enough different ritual beasts that are banished currently, and I believe he does because he didn't special summon either Apelio or Petalfin this turn, he can put these two, banish them to get back Canahawk, resolve the Canahawk's effect, and then special summon back Apelio and Petalfin.
Then he can combine those.
He still needs another Ritual Beast Tamer, though, to do it. If he wants to bring out the Petalfin.
Yeah, you're right. He doesn't have enough Tamers for that.
First, though, but he activates Canahawk to get one.
That puts the Tamer there. So now he can do that. So now he can banish both of his monsters to summon one of his ulti Ritual Beasts. He can take the Canahawk.
It's probably going to be the Canahawk this time.
Yes.
He needs another Ritual Beast card. Like another Steeds or an Ambush will be pretty good here.
Okay, so
he tries to do his trick, and Benedikt Junk falls for it and activates the Veiler in response to Canahawk's first effect. The second effect is chained, and as a result, it's not on the field anymore when Effect Veiler is there.
So that effect
won't be negated.
The Effect Veiler is not useful. This is looking really bad for Benedikt Junk now, because it looks like Breton is going to get a card to add to his hand with the effect of his ulti Canahawk, and now summon ulti Petalfin. That's usually one of the most common monsters to use to defend yourself when you're in main phase 2.
He's got the Steeds he picked up with Canahawk.
Oh, he has Steeds.
Oh, he goes ahead and summons another Canahawk. Okay.
Second Canahawk. Is he able to summon another Ritual Beast and Spiritual Beast?
I believe he's used all of his possible summons for the turn. Oh, except for Lara.
So he does still have a Ritual Beast and Spiritual Beast, so he might still go for the ulti Petalfin I was expecting before, but wants to optimize the use of his monsters, get as many searches with ulti Canahawk as he can. So in addition to the Steeds he just picked up, he will be adding another Steeds to his hand. And if he does combine his Ritual Beast with his Spiritual Beast to summon ulti Petalfin, that would be bad news for Benedikt Junk. He has a Raigeki in his hand, which normally from those destruction effects.
And there we go. There's Petalfin. Cannot be destroyed by card effects. 2,800 defense. Smart move, especially after we saw the Raigeki last time around.
Yes. And there is that Fiendish Chain?
Oh, he's just picked up a Fiendish Chain. And the interesting thing is that Monarch Stormforth would actually be really good here if he had a monster.
Yes.
Even if it's contacted out, the new monsters will also be affected by it.
That's true. It's not like Soul Exchange. It doesn't target the monster on the opponent's field.
Correct.
So in the end phase, it looks like he tagged out his ulti Ritual Beast, so to speak, summoned 2 new monsters in their place, used their effects to special summon 2 more monsters.
Yeah, he used Ritual Beast Ambush there to bring out 2 more.
The ambush to special summon 2 more, and suddenly that one Fiendish Chain is not looking like it's enough.
Rampengu is put on a 2-turn delay, thanks to Canahawk, and Lara and Canahawk are banished, replaced with ulti Apelio. Apelio attacks. Apelio does not attack. Can't tell with those hand motions sometimes.
Yeah. Now Canahawk's out there.
Ulti Canahawk and Ulti Apelio. It's 2,600 plus, I believe, 19? No, 14.
Breton had a Mystical Space Typhoon in his hand, so as soon as Junk flipped Fiendish Chain, Breton just chained it. Chained his Mystical Space Typhoon to destroy it. And it's not over. Now he's using...
Yep, he's doing his trick with Ulti Canahawk again. Let's put regular Canahawk and Zephyr Pelica on the field. Ritual Beast Steeds goes to the graveyard, and Ritual Beast Tamer When is added to the hand. When normal summoned, summons a banished Ritual Beast.
Can he get Ritual Beast spawned?
This
Does he have it already?
would be very useful in this case.
Yeah, it looks like with Bond, he'd be able to just win. Benedikt Junky's at 6,400 life points. There's the Counterhawk. Maybe this is where he's using its effect to get it. There is one copy of Ritual Beast spawned in his main deck. It is possible he sounded it out, but as long as he didn't, this duel should be over.
He now has a Spiritual Beast.
And there it
Ritual
is.
Beast Tamer.
Ritual Beast spawned.
Ulti Apelio. All right. He goes ahead and contacts back out.
And Benedikt Junk sees that it is over. He cannot survive attacks from 2 fusion monsters, as well as a 3rd fusion monster that ends up summoned as a result of Ritual Beast spawn.
Right. Basically, what's going to happen is Ulti Apelio attacks. The other fusion monster attacks, still in the battle phase. One of them is disassembled back into its parts, and then the quick play Ritual Beast Bond is used to turn the 2 new monsters into another fusion to attack for the win.
Exactly.
So we're going to game 3. It was a little touch and go there for a while on the Ritual Beast side. He didn't have a whole lot, and he was getting smashed by removal cards. But the fact that Benedikt Junk couldn't get any monsters past that one carrier allowed him to get back into the game and execute his combos.
We saw a lot of awesome uses of Raigeki this weekend. This was one of the times where he was holding in his hand for a while and it wasn't doing anything.
Yeah, that's what people are afraid of, basically.
Yeah, that's the type of thing they're afraid of. Stuff like Ulti Pedalfin.
Fear the Pink Dolphin.
Yeah. I love all the Ritual Beast cards. So colorful. They remind me of the Gladiator Beasts. They kind of play a little like them.
Game 3, it doesn't look like we're seeing any further action from the side deck.
Yes, so we don't know exactly what Benedikt Junk sided. I mentioned his side deck earlier, but we didn't really talk about any side deck strategy for him.
He did put in the 2 Monarch Stormforth. Majesty's Fiend.
Is it safe to say he put that in
Majesty's
with the
Fiend
Monarch
prevents
Stormforth?
Activation of monster effects while it's face up. As long as you can stop them from getting 2 on the field, run it down with Ulti Apelio seems good.
Yeah, Spell Canceller is probably not worthwhile here. He has 2 copies of that.
Imperial Iron Wall.
Yeah, that's definitely coming in.
And the Stake could even have applications here to prevent the activation of Ulti Cannahawk's effect.
That's true. Imperial Iron Wall is definitely his #1 choice for cards to see. While it's face up, cards can't get banished, and if cards can't get banished, Ritual Beast can barely play.
And it looks like we are ready to go here. Benedikt Junk seems to have opted to go first. He starts with a Helix and Sacrifice, along with 2 face-down cards. Not a bad start. And Breton is up. He starts with Cannahawk. And activates its effect.
Which Ritual Beast monster does he want banished?
He goes with Lara. He doesn't have a Tamer yet.
All right, now there's one in the banish zone. If it's still there in 2 turns, he can have it.
One of the keys early on when you're playing with Ritual Beasts is to get all of the different named monsters into places that you can access them from as quickly as you can. You're limited by how many times you can contact out, basically, and swap fusion monsters around. So getting to your monsters quickly is paramount.
Yes, we definitely saw that in Duel 2. When all of his monsters were everywhere, everywhere in a visible zone, he was able to do pretty much everything he wanted to do. If he could think it, he could do it.
Emergency Teleport is activated, but lose 1 turn is chained. And Ritual Beast Tamer Elder is summoned in defense position. Lose 1 turn is particularly useful here. Anything that's summoned will have its effects negated for the turn. Breton is back to thinking.
A lose 1 turn's effect for negation, does that use the chain?
The effect for negation does not.
Does not. So he's not able to pull off any crazy shenanigans where he's able to activate, like fuse for a Canahawk, activate its effects, diffuse it.
He could still diffuse. He can banish his monster as a cost.
But would would his effect resolve?
It's the effect of a special summon monster.
What if it's off the field?
If it's face down, you might get away with it. But I spoke with the judges earlier, and the way it's been ruled thus far is that it will still be negated.
Interesting. So he's fusing his monsters together.
Goes ahead and takes Apelio, which will then be shifted to defense.
As a result of lose 1 turn.
Now he does have Mystical Space Typhoon in his hand.
Does, but he chose not to use it. Oh,
yes, his opponent decided to very helpfully switch
yeah.
it for him.
It might have been a little premature there. Yeah, he can't in good faith say that monster was actually switched to defense mode.
Yes,
when
that was.
He's the one, when Benedikt Junk is the one who moved his hand across the table and switched its position.
Yeah, that won't do it all.
Yeah.
Apelio attacks. It's 26 across a 2100 monster, courtesy of Sacrifice. And also courtesy of Sacrifice, the monster will stay.
Yes, Sacrifice will be destroyed instead. And of course, with Sacrifice sent to the graveyard, he'll be able to add any Clifford from his deck to his hand. Assuming the attack goes through, and that is what happens.
The attack has gone through, but can't be destroyed by battle. It's just a case of Sacrifice stays, monster stays.
Well, can't be destroyed in battle, right?
Yep.
Sacrifice does not go to the graveyard.
Sacrifice is also limited.
Yes, it is limited.
Oh, equip spell of the 4 really good effects.
That's right. It doesn't just... It doesn't use itself as a shield to protect the monster. It just protects the monster.
Right.
Okay, so... He
swaps out for Canahawk and Lara. Helio is banished for Canahawk. And then those two head off to the banished pile.
And who is he reaching for? This time he's taking Ulti Canahawk.
That was the Ulti Canahawk. Now he can start searching out cards from his deck. Now, Sacrifice only prevents destruction by battle, so he could get Steeds.
Which he will.
And blast it.
Yes, and he used... It looks like he used his Canahawk, Ulti Canahawk's effect to actually send 2 cards from his battlefield to his graveyard and not chain its effect.
Don't see that every day.
You don't. That's the simplest use of the card. And Ritual Beast players like to complicate everything.
In hand, he's got the Steeds. He's also got a Wen, Raigeki, and Trapstun. Leaves the Canahawk, sets 2. Which should be the Trapstun and the Tamer. And on Junk's turn, he tributes his carrier for a Helix. Or is it a Helix for a carrier?
Looks like...
Chain is formed. Sacrifice is chain link 1. Helix is 2.
Will he hit the Steeds or the Trapstun?
It is the Steeds. Yes. And he chains it to destroy carrier.
The good news for Junk is that now his Sacrifice is sent to the graveyard, and finally he can get a Clifford Scout from his deck. That's something he's probably been wanting for 2 games now.
Yep. Scout is activated. And its effect is as well. So that means the other card is a Trapstun, which does not super help at the moment.
Right.
Scout's effect, picks up Clifford Monolith.
With that Monolith in the second Pendulum Zone, he'll finally be free to Pendulum summon his Clifford monsters.
Monolith is activated. Can't put 2 cards in one Pendulum Zone. Gotta go in the other one.
Yeah. Cards definitely don't fit in the zones that way.
Clifford Scout would be super good if we could just stack a couple of them on top of each other. Carrier and Helix return at 1800 attack. Cannahawk is attacked, but split back up into component parts. It only had 1600 defense, so it's replaced by Lara with 2000. And Apelio, who has 200.
Clipboards are still stronger.
Apelio is attacked and activates his effect, banishing a Cannahawk, but still takes the hit and heads to the graveyard. And in the end phase, he gets to draw 1 off of Monolith, since he did tribute summon that turn. And he picks up another Scout. Breton's shaking his head. He's got the Regeki, but unless he can really push through a lot of damage right there, those monsters are just coming back.
Yeah, well, what he needs here is a way to deal with the monsters in the Pendulum Zone to completely cut Benedikt Junk off from his Pendulum summons. And that's going to be tough to do. Even if he has a way to get rid of the Scout and the Monolith, we know that Junk has another Scout in his hand. So he can just play it, pay 800 life points, and get another Pendulum monster to place in the Pendulum Zone so that he can Pendulum summon again.
The other alternative is if he can clear out these current monsters with Regeki and get enough monsters to load up for a big Ritual Beast Steed, he might be able to stop the Pendulum Summon Swarm. That's only a 1-turn solution.
That could be possible. If he's able to do that and able to push damage, a 1-turn solution might be all he needs, because on his second turn, he might be able to deal more damage and win.
Fortunately for that, he's drawn Upstart Goblin, which will undo his work.
Right. He has Ritual Beast Tamer Wen, Raigeki, and Upstart Goblin in his hand.
And that's what he's thinking about right now, probably why he hasn't played the Goblin yet.
Yeah, I mean, 1,000 life points is relevant. It always is.
So Wen can summon back that Cannahawk that's currently banished. He also has to consider what that other face-down card is. Whether or not he wants to flip his Trap Stun preemptively. Now, he doesn't know that Effect Veiler is hiding in his opponent's hand and will shut down the Wen. And he flips the Trap Stun.
So the Trap Stun will get rid of, negate all the traps on the field, but it won't negate that Effect Veiler.
There's the Regeki, and here's Wen. And Benedikt Junk quickly asks what it does, and uses the Veiler. He's no choice left but to upstart now. We can at least get 1,500 points off with Wen. And he seems to have drawn into Emergency Teleport. Not super useful here, because what he needs is a Spiritual Beast. He's already got 2 Tamers, doesn't need the 3rd. Wen attacks for a net gain of 500 damage to Junk's life points.
And here he goes again.
Here comes the Flood.
Junk is using his Scout's effect once again by paying 800 life points, and he is adding another Clipboard monster to his hand.
And he's drawn Clifford Shell, which is particularly deadly in this instance, with its double attacking, piercing damage ways.
Yeah, that seems pretty good here. Especially since the monsters for him to tribute are right there in his extra deck from the Pendulum Summon first.
You can knock that face-down card off the field. Though I think at this point it might be forced to be chained as a defensive measure.
It does look like that.
Clifford Shell, since it's usually only seen as a one-off in Clifford decks if you're unfamiliar with it. Its ability is if normal summoned by attributing a Klee monster, QLI, can make a second attack during each battle phase, and it inflicts piercing damage to your opponent. That means that normally your opponent would be safe when you attack their defense position monsters. Instead, they take the difference between your monster's attack, or between the monster's attack and the monster's defense.
Okay, so here comes the pendulum summon.
He pendulum summons the shell.
That's interesting. Yeah, he did. Is it more damage that way?
I'm not certain it is. Time appears to have run out in the round, though, so the amount of damage is very much a consideration at the moment, since this is a 3-turn end-of-match procedure instead of the normal 5.
Ah, that's right. And that emergency teleport could block another turn. Well, will block another attack.
And that is why the piercing damage from Shell and the fact that it double attacks is so important in this exact situation.
Yeah, you're right. I can't imagine pendulum summoning it would be more damage than a double attack piercing.
Right,
damage.
And especially because you don't need to use both Helix and Carrier for the tribute summon, because you've got a Shell that doesn't really provide any offense.
Right.
In fact, the combined attack points of the Shell, or of the Scout, and the other card you tribute for Shell is 2,800.
Yeah.
But you're getting 2 2,800 attacks out of Shell.
Yeah, so I don't know why he pendulum summoned it. But in any case, he does have... He isn't... If not for the fact they're in overtime, he would be in a fantastic position. Even so, he looks like he's in a very good position.
He's checking his extra deck.
The problem, of course, is he's down 2,600 life points.
Right.
So he's going to have this turn plus one additional turn to deal that amount of damage.
Oh, yes. One additional turn.
Top 8 players at this time of the round. Please proceed to return and procedure.
Let's see, what can Breton draw on his next turn that will actually keep him in the duel?
An ambush would probably help anything to get monsters in the way. There are only 3 attackers right now.
You're right.
He could put 2 more in the way. And that, combined with the difference from the extra 800 from Scout, might be enough to keep him around. Now, we haven't seen what Benedikt Junk actually drew this turn.
Actually, I think he has a stealth in his hand because he
Stealth?
searched. Yeah, yes, it is.
That's
Right. He searched for it with his Clifford Scout. So that's why he did what he did. He pendulum summoned the shell so that he'd be able to tribute summon the stealth instead.
And he has gotten both of his own pendulum zones unoccupied, which means he can use his extra again. So that's why he's went through the extra deck.
So
stealth attacks Lara. Shell at 1,800. Attacks Wen for 300. And Carrier attacks Zephyr Pilica. That only puts Breton at 7,700, though.
So, yes, Breton is still up by 2,300 life points, but he has no cards anywhere but his graveyard, back zone, and deck. And one in his extra deck, too. But he has nothing in his hand, nothing on his field. So he's definitely in a tough position.
2 4s make number 106 Giant Hand.
Crowd sounds pretty excited to see that card.
Pretty happy about Giant Hand. Not something you see every day due to its status as a YCS prize card.
Yes.
But it can detach both materials. Oh, wow, the face down was climate change. Things start to make a little bit more sense now.
Yeah. So he climate change face down. He used that to add the clipboards from his extra deck to his hand. Activate the Scout. He's using its effect to pay 800 life points and add another clipboard card to his hand. Not sure which he's going to take. It looks like he is leaning toward Recreate.
Giant Hand, in case you are unfamiliar, is a rank 4 Xyz monster, 2,000 attack and defense, and it can detach both of his materials when your opponent activates a monster effect on their side of the field. and negate that affect monster's effects and stop it from changing its battle position.
So Breton, with no cards in his hand or on his field, draws Ritual Beast Steeds and offers the handshake.
And that'll do it.
Yep, that's it. Benedikt Junk is moving on to the top 8.
It's a bit of a nail biter.
Yeah,
He's victorious.
That was
in the
definitely
quarterfinals. Goes on to the semifinals.
It was definitely a close match.
Yeah. I was a little worried there that without the extra damage from the shell, he wasn't going to get there.
Right, but he had the stealth in his hand.
Stealth in his hand.
We forgot about that. Although we did see him search for that, so it's possible that Breton actually knew and anticipated the stealth.
Okay, that would be why he activated the emergency teleport.
Yeah, so that clears things up. But in the end, yeah, he definitely put himself in a fantastic position with his last turn. At that point, I don't think there's anything Breton could have drawn to survive one more turn, which is actually all he needed. He's not running anything like Threatening Roar or Wabaku in his deck, so it was pretty much over before he drew the Steeds, because any card that could have been would not have helped him.
All right, 4 duelists left. 3 of them are going to walk away with an Ascension Sky Dragon prize card, but only one of them will be the champion of the 150th Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series tournament here in Columbus, Ohio. Don't go away.
We'll be back next round.